Drama at the garden party as a guest of King Charles and Queen Camilla is duped by a fake picture of Lily, which has gone viral and overshadowed much of this meeting. The woman in question, one of America's top news women, Greta Van Susteren. She is a close ally of President Trump, was invited to attend the event at the British Embassy with King Charles and Queen Camilla. Indeed, she posted the King and Queen very gracious, meeting everyone. They must have been exhausted. Long flight, then tea at the White House, and then this large garden party at the British Embassy. And don't forget the time change. This was about midnight their time. Queen Camilla speaking with the new British ambassador and his wife, since they were Newsmax's guests Saturday night. I was under the table with both of them when the shout "Get Down" rang out. Not the best USA greeting for a new ambassador and his wife. The problem is that in the exact same time frame that she was meeting the King and the Queen, the Newsmax presenter posted this. A viral tweet from Nico, which said Meghan Markle has shared on social media the first public photo of her 4-year-old daughter, Lilibet. Now, even though it was community noted, saying the photo appears to be AI generated, similar to other images identified as such, were not shared by Meghan Markle, Greta Van Susteren has as yet refused to delete the post and claimed that is such a gorgeous little girl. And of course, this is one of the big problems with the visit, as Robert Jobson, the royal reporter closest to King Charles, has reported the grief of Harry hangs over the event. And indeed, even though these front pages were very, very good news today for His Majesty, given that there were fears that his ill health and cancer battle could even stop him making the visit at all, a visit which was then shrouded in controversy because of the third attempted assassination bid on Donald Trump. All of that said, there is this unspoken feeling that Harry and Meghan provide a real issue. Narendra Kaur, the leftist commentator, member of the Sussex squad, posting after the arrival last night, "Sorry, I genuinely can't understand a man who will go across the world to meet Trump, who slagged off our armed forces and not even go to see his grandkids and son. How many years has it been since Charles has seen Archie and Lilibet?" Okay. All of the latest now. We cross stateside to Tom Sykes. He is the author of the Royalist Substack. Tom, it is all going on, but let's be honest. It is absolutely diplomatically impossible, is it not, for King Charles and Queen Camilla to even fathom a meeting with Harry and Meghan, even if their heart did desire that. So this pressure feels very unfair.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, Narendra Kaur is just talking complete nonsense. I mean, she knows why the king can't go and meet with Harry and Meghan. She knows that's not what this trip is about. The idea that King Charles just woke up one morning and decided to go to America and meet Donald Trump, this is a high-level diplomatic mission. It's been months, probably, if not a year in the planning. The idea that he's just going to start freelancing and go off and see his, son, who just on Friday was doing his best to destabilize the trip and make the trip a problem, and of course it was left to Donald Trump to point out the obvious, which is that Harry does not speak for the United Kingdom. So, I mean, just ignore these people who are just trying to make trouble. I think the king is doing an absolutely fantastic job. As you said, Dan, he's battling cancer, but my goodness, I think every British person would be incredibly proud of the king and the queen going out there and doing what their job is to do.
And Tom, the understanding is that he has had to pause his cancer treatment because this trip is just so important, not just to him and his legacy, but also given the current state of relations between the US and the UK. Is that what you're hearing too?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, let's take the king at his word, at what he said in December, that he was going to be having much less treatment. So as you know, Dan, in the UK, the media aren't really talking about this. We're a bit more able to talk about it, of course, always respectfully. But the reality is that the king is no longer having weekly treatments. What he was having was a very complex, a very advanced immunotherapy injections that he was having every week at the London clinic. They did go very well. It did go very well. And the king is by no means out of the woods. He's made that clear. But I think he's a great inspiration to people living with cancer. I think he's a great source of comfort to people whose friends and family, whose parents are living with cancer. But yeah, I think that really from the king's point of view, I think that what has been so admirable about the way, and while I have my criticisms about the way that they've perhaps handled the news over the time, what I don't think you can take away from the king is his absolute courage and bravery and determination to carry on. And I feel very proud to see him in Washington this week.
Indeed, indeed. And I think people are surprised by how healthy he is looking. And I think a lot of that is to do with a bit like how the late Queen used to do. All of the treatment is very much geared around preparing him for these key moments. And this was always a key moment, just like the Platinum Jubilee was such a key moment for Queen Elizabeth II. Of course, we cannot deny the fact that they are in America and they are making this royal comeback or attempted royal comeback, that there is an elephant in the room aspect with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle this week. How surprised are you, Tom, that Greta Van Susteren, who is a guest at the British Embassy, has gone viral by posting this? I mean, it clearly is fake, Tom, but she's been told this is fake and she hasn't removed it, despite her posts after it being about meeting the king and queen.
I mean, I'm slightly baffled by the whole thing, but I think that ultimately what I feel about this, Dan, is I feel that the Sussexes, frankly, are to blame for all these AI images of the children all over the internet that anyone can look up, that Greta Van Susteren has fallen for. Whether she has deliberately fallen for it remains the topic of debate. These pictures are all over the internet. But the point that I always make, Dan, is that you don't need AI to figure out what these kids look like, right? Because how the human brain works, right, it fills in the gaps for you. Like, I actually don't think that's terribly good likeness of Princess Lily. And I think that in terms of what I know about her, from what Meghan has put online, I have a clearer picture of what the kid looks like than that. So I think that the fact that Greta has posted this image is slightly bizarre. But the bottom line is that it's Meghan and Harry who have put their children into the public domain. They are very determined to make sure that their children are as high profile as William and Catherine's children. They are very determined, to make sure that their children are the most famous children in the world. And to be fair, it's Meghan. We know that Harry is very opposed to it. It's, I am told, a source of great tension within the marriage between the two of them. I think the fact of whether people are sharing these images online, I mean, I'm not surprised they are. And I'm not surprised people think they are genuine, because at this stage, let's face it, we're all just waiting for the highest bidder to pay Meghan for the picture of the kid, aren't we?
Indeed. But Tom, in a very powerful new post on The Royalist, you have said that before this visit, Prince Harry made what you describe as a stunning challenge to King Charles's authority. And you've even gone further, Tom. You have said Harry is now setting about undoing Megxit. That's how serious this interview with Chris Shipp on Woke ITV was. And we will play the key highlights, Tom, but can you just set up why this interview was so devastating for the British royal family in terms of the timing? Because, Tom, there is one school of thought on the internet at the moment, and I don't agree with it personally, but it's that, this is what Charles wants. This is what the royal family want. They were in some ways aiding Prince Harry being in Ukraine. Now, that is certainly not my understanding, but can you just explain why this was so bad for the royal family?
Yeah, so Harry had been in Australia. Then the next thing we know, he pops up at Ukraine at a big security summit in Ukraine. He starts mouthing off about Putin and Trump, saying that, war's a bad thing and the war should end and that America should sort it out. And, very, very unhelpful 3 or 4 days before Charles is about to go off on the biggest the most fraught diplomatic mission of his life. But I felt that the following day, when Harry gave this interview to Chris Shipp of ITV, in which he said that he was still a working royal, I felt that it actually crossed the line, Dan, from being unhelpful to actually being cruel. I think it was a really, really mean and nasty thing to do. Like, literally, his dad, as we said, he's got cancer. He's not well. He's doing great, fantastic. Let's take him at his word. Let's hope that, he lives many, many more years and is able to do that. But this is a huge deal. It's been years in the planning. He's going to marry. He doesn't like people like Donald Trump particularly. He's not aligned with that. Charles is very humane, multilateralist, as we know. He's been criticized for the extent of his sort of, multilateralism.
By me.
So different.
Very often.
By us all, to be fair, by us all. And but I feel like Charles is just trying to do his job. He's trying to do his duty. And I felt like it was a really mean thing of, fine, you've got your arguments with your dad, you've got your arguments with your friend. Do you really need to throw your dad under the bus 2 days before he's about to get on the plane for the most important meeting of his reign? I thought it was unforgivable, actually. I thought it was unforgivable, but...
Totally. I completely agree. And there's a couple of key moments that I want to look at here. Because the first one, and look, you may have a different view on this, but I just view Chris Shipp as a complete propagandist for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. There were many follow-up questions that should have been asked. And what I saw was Harry being angry that Chris Shipp had gone there publicly and actually suggested that what Harry had said in Ukraine could impact the state visit. And it almost appeared that, even though we didn't see this, that Harry walked off and the interview soon wrapped, and making, I think, it physically clear that the interview was over.
Look, on one sense, I'm reassured that Harry realizes his own unbelievable irrelevance and realizes that, not a word that he says is going to be taken seriously by the king or Donald Trump. On the other hand, what's the point in saying it? Then what is the point in saying it? Why are you trying to make everyone's life? Are you really still so bitter and so angry about your terrible upbringing in a palace and, the fact that you never had to pay an electricity bill in your whole life and suddenly you were astonished that you had to, pay your own way? Are you still so angry and so bitter about that 3 days before your dad is going off to do the most important diplomatic mission of his life, you're doing your best to empty a bag of spanners into the works? I think it's just unforgivable, and I don't understand why. I do understand why, and you do, as you do too, Dan. But it's extraordinary.
Yeah. Well, the answer to your question is yes.
Donald Trump. That it was left to Donald Trump to say Prince Harry doesn't speak for the United Kingdom.
100%. And I mean, the answer to your questions, though, is yes. I mean, he is still that bitter. He is still that unhappy. The whole thing about Ukraine was clearly the hot potato issue. But for me, as a royal reporter, the threat that was actually much, much clearer in Harry's interview was when he declared, I think incorrectly, factually incorrectly, that he will always be part of the royal family. See, the whole thing is nuts. Of course, no one is suggesting that his bloodline isn't royal. But the whole point of the Sandringham summit was it being made completely clear to him that he does no longer operate as a member of the royal family. Can he just unilaterally declare otherwise? And does Charles have to do something about this now, finally?
Well, it's incredibly disingenuous, isn't it, to sort of say, oh, well, I'm still actually a member of the royal family after all. Well, you know, and the thing I often say, Dan, is like people like you and me, people who are watching this show who follow the story of the royal family, and like Donald Trump, understand that he doesn't speak for the country. He doesn't have a role, is not a representative of the country. But to 95% of the people who just get their news on their news feeds and aren't particularly interested in the royal family and see something or don't see something, they quite understandably think that this guy is a member of the royal family. It's interesting. I was meeting with a really influential communications consultant this morning who actually lives not far from in that part of the world in California. And this person said to me, if you were advising Harry and Meghan, what would you say to them? I'm not sure whether there was a very amazing bit. And I said, do you know what I would say to them? I would say to them, A, drop your titles, surrender your titles voluntarily. Say that you are not a prince and princess, that your kids are not prince and princess, that you are not a duke and duchess. And I think that would go a long, long way. But of course, the reality is, I'm sure Harry would potentially think about it. I don't think Meghan would ever consider it. But I mean, really, this is the whole core of the problem, isn't it, Dan? Is that the Queen said to them, "You cannot be half in and half out," and a life of public service is incompatible with making money, is what she said. And of course, they had the temerity to respond, "Well, service is universal." I mean, as if the Queen was implying that you couldn't leave a useful life or do service to your family. I mean, of course, that's not what she was doing. It was so offensive. And I remember at the time was thinking, it's so incredibly rude to someone who's given their whole life for public service to sort of lecture them on what public service means. And I just think that, really, I think we have reached the stage now where the titles need to be removed. Unfortunately, we know that Charles isn't going to do it. It's just not in his nature to create the conflict. The cancer has taken a lot out of him, and he does obviously, wish to be reconciled with his son. But we're going to have to wait for William to do it. I think it may be too long to wait, to be honest, Dan, for the British people. I think it may be too long to wait.
Yeah, I really think so. Now, look, we've obviously seen at the moment Charles and Camilla at the White House, but actually even the first day, Tom, which was meant to be very low-key on this state visit, was quite a success. I want to talk about some of the highlights from this garden party, which was quite a laugh, actually. I loved this from Britannia Royal, and we can actually take a look at the video because Charles was having a great time and actually proving that he still does know how to very much deal with the public. So Britannia Royal posted a lusty scrumpet, tried her luck with King Charles. And I mean, she absolutely did adore him. But Charles was playing up to this. And given that he had been on this long flight, he's suffering from terrible cancer. I mean, I think it was quite a performance, Tom.
The King and Queen's visit carried significant diplomatic importance, featuring official meetings and public engagements designed to strengthen ties between the two nations. Observers noted the King's determination to fulfill these duties while continuing his treatment for cancer, a commitment that drew praise from supporters on both sides of the Atlantic. Attention soon turned to a social media post sharing an image purported to show Princess Lilibet. Community notes and subsequent reporting indicated that the picture appeared to be AI-generated and had not been released by Meghan Markle. The incident reignited concerns about misinformation online and demonstrated how quickly unverified images can spread, particularly when they involve high-profile public figures. Commentators used the episode to revisit long-running questions about how Harry and Meghan balance their children's privacy with their public profile. Some argued that the couple's selective sharing of family images contributes to public curiosity, while others maintained that they have every right to protect their children from excessive media attention. These differing views remain a recurring feature of coverage surrounding the Sussex family. The video also includes speculation about tensions within Harry and Meghan's marriage and the broader relationship between the Sussexes and the royal family. Such claims are not independently verified in the transcript and should be understood as commentary rather than established fact. What is clear is that any major royal event involving King Charles now unfolds against the backdrop of the continuing public fascination with Harry and Meghan. Ultimately, the story illustrates how rapidly online narratives can shift. A significant diplomatic visit became intertwined with debates over AI-generated content, family relationships, and royal publicity. It is a reminder that in today's media environment, even unrelated stories can become linked when they involve globally recognized figures. The state visit itself remains an important diplomatic milestone, but the surrounding controversies show how difficult it can be for public figures to control the conversation. As always, separating verified facts from speculation is essential when following stories like these.